because in a sea of social media and all this carefully crafted online personas, Shed Dogs is like this breath of authenticity.
Yeah, it is.
These guys are just being themselves, and people seem to love it.
I lost my compass card. So when I go riding, I always take a compass card in case something goes wrong, right? Gotta get home. And I lost it. I don't know where it went. I thought forever it was in the house. And Dale of North Vancouver has been teasing me about it ever since. Oh, it's probably with your compass card. Just find your compass card. It'll be right next to it. For 3 years, right? So I was out for a ride the other day, came home, took my cards out of the handlebar bag on my bike, put them on the table, decided to load up my wallet before I went out again, put the cash card in it, started looking for my compass card, couldn't find it. Looked all over the place, looked in my riding kit, looked in the handlebar bag, looked in other pants or jackets that I'd worn, couldn't find it. Concluded it was lost, got right onto the compass site, canceled the old one, transferred the balance to the new one, ordered the new one, came in the mail today. Day before yesterday, I found it on my table. It was just buried in the rubble on my table. So that's $6 I'll never see again.
No, I came back from the lake and I couldn't find my shoes. I brought 2 pairs of shoes up there.
Did you?
Yeah. And I couldn't find them. And also couldn't find one of my glasses cases. I thought, fuck, there's some little bag sitting at the lake that's got these things in them. And I thought, oh, well, whatever. So about a week ago, I set up, I'm going to do my watercolors for the first time in a very long time. I can't find my watercolors. Like, I have everything else. I took all my art up there, like the brushes and paper and all this shit. They're all here, and I can't find my watercolors. So I sent an email to Gordon Siobhan at Silver Birch and say, I might be an idiot, but Gord, can you go in the cabin and see if you can find it? I gave him pictures of everything, right? Nope, couldn't find anything. As soon as he said that, of course, I found the watercolors here in a bag where I've just put them somewhere different. But there's been a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot, but just big ones.
One of the reasons my place remains an enormous, unbelievably untidy mess, the first being I'm super lazy, is that when I actually put things away, they cease to exist for me. If they're not where my eye can fall upon them within seconds, they don't exist. And so you end up with, 15 tape measures because they no longer exist.
Yeah.
And it was like that when I was working. My admin support people who were professionals were just constantly stressed out by the state of my desk because it was always covered like 3-4 inches deep with paper. And they would say, "Can I do your filing for you?" And I'd say, "Well, okay." And they'd do my filing, and next thing, can't find anything. I filed it. It's in that drawer that I told you about under that oh yeah, there it is. Yep. 3 months later, same conversation, for 15 years, just went on like that.
Yeah, my finding capabilities continue to get worse. I think that's just a one-way trip at this point. I've done a couple things. I've made a change lately where, like you got stuff, right? Like look at the car, for example. You might have 4 things in your car and maybe you only have room to kind of hold 3 of them at a time. Then in my mind, if one of them's like a sweater and it's in the back seat, I just go, well, I'll just leave it in the back seat. And then next time that I need to pull a few things in, I'll grab them all from the back seat. This will be, efficient use of my time. So I've stopped doing that at this point. I'm trying to actually go, I'm going to go back out now and get this next thing from the back seat and put it where it belongs.
Yeah, you start hopefully going with the everything has a place, everything in its place. That's going to be my mantra.
Absolutely. And I've added a new list, yet another list, because I got a list of where things are, but I've also created a list of where to look for things you've lost. And you'd think that would just be a simple list, but it's not. Like, it varies by item, So I got keys, Like, for some reason, I'll be looking for my keys that completely escapes me to look in all my jacket pockets.
That's
right? Stuff like that. Right?
Yeah.
But what Moby said earlier, that is the key. No pun intended.
Speaking of keys,
you just put it down in a different than usual place.
Yes.
For me, it's the table in the kitchen.
Oh, where everything goes.
Yeah.
And you know that you'll deal with it at some point.
Oh, no, it's just I know that I'll find it there if I put it there.
Yeah.
If I put it somewhere else, it better be in one of my coat pockets.
Right.
Because otherwise, we're starting a 2-hour voyage. It's not pretty when that happens.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking into something that I am positive everyone has experienced at one point or another in their lives.
Oh, yeah.
And that's losing things.
Oh, for sure.
We're talking misplaced keys, vanished watercolors, the works.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those universal frustrations, just a part of being human. But it turns out there's actually a whole lot of psychology behind those lost items.
That's right. And
Yeah.
what seems like a simple annoyance, a simple frustration, can actually reveal a lot about how our brains work, how we remember, and even how our habits play a role.
So in this deep dive, we'll be sharing some personal anecdotes and insights from a recent conversation we had, and we'll be looking into memory perception, things like object permanence. And you might even be surprised to hear we're even going to touch on the future of entertainment.
Wow.
But first, I want to just set the scene with the story that really got this whole deep dive going, and that is the story of the lost compass card. You know, the ones for
likely to
public
misplace
transit?
those
So
items
this person lost their
because
card,
you've
searched
trained
high
yourself
and
to always
low,
look there
tore
first.
the house apart. Okay, this is all making sense now.
Good.
But let's be honest.
Yeah.
Even with the best systems in place,
Yeah.
sometimes we just blank. Like when you forget to check your coat pocket for your keys, even though you always keep them there.
That's the power of habitual thinking,
Ah.
and it can work against us. Our brains develop these shortcuts to navigate daily routines.
Right.
But sometimes those shortcuts turn into blind spots. We stop actively looking in places we've checked 1,000 times before.
So even when we think we're being thorough, our brains are kind of playing tricks on us.
It's like a mental autopilot that sometimes misses the obvious.
But wait, how does all of this connect to the future of entertainment? That's quite a leap from Lost Keys.
It is, and that's what makes this conversation so fascinating. Stay tuned, because that's where we're heading next.
You guys want to do listener mail?
No, I don't. I want, before anything else happens in this shed, I want you guys to right now publicly make your election predictions, plural.
Damn good
provincial,
coffee.
federal U.S., and federal Canadian, because the federal Canadian's coming for sure.
We can do this for us, but it's just so boring for the listeners to hear us talking about an election that happened 2 months ago.
It's not, doesn't have to be long. All you have to do is say who you think is going to win, which party is going to win. That's it. I don't care who
I
you
want you to
support.
define win, though, because everyone keeps thinking, oh, whoever's tops in the polls or whoever gets the most votes, that's who won.
That's why we're
who
playing
wins
this.
is who can make an an arrangement with the Greens,
Okay, let's
right,
then
to rule,
let's-
which means the NDP will obviously win.
All right. The definition of winning is who is implementing policy at whatever level of government
Well,
we're
that'll be
discussing.
an NDP for sure.
In which category? Federal, provincial, or U.S. federal?
I thought we were talking provincial, sorry, because
think
it's
I laid
it's
out
the
all
one
three.
coming up.
All three.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
provincial, you're
this
going
is
NDP.
just so much.
Provincial.
Provincial, okay. NDP will be in power of setting policy. In a range.
I don't know if they'll have a majority.
Probably not.
I don't.
I don't know that either, but
I
as
don't.
long as they're setting policy, as RJ helpfully mentions, they are still in charge of government. Who's going to win?
Kenny, who's going to win? You tell us.
NDP.
Why?
Now, who's going to win? You never answered. Who's going to win?
I believe the NDP will
Okay,
win.
good. Now, I guess the U.S. federal is up next.
Yes.
Who's going to win?
I'll give it to the Dems, barely.
Yeah, I agree. KJ?
Yes.
Okay. Unanimous.
But whether she takes office is a whole other thing, isn't it?
Oh, wow. That's grim.
She's she's courting the
Muslims, Arabs.
the crypto vote, which actually doesn't exist. But man, oh man, the Dems are in the pockets of the crypto industry. They are by far the largest contributors to their campaign.
Are they?
They also contribute on the Republican side, but they contribute even more to the
Well, that should
to the
be.
Dems. And like Kamala is not saying, she's saying, mumbling supportive things about the crypto. So it's really scary.
Well, that should be seen as who they believe will be in power. The cryptos believe the Democrats will be in
But
power.
they contributed both sides.
Yeah, but they out-contributed, you said.
That's what I think, yeah.
Okay.
There's probably a lot of corporations that do that, right? Play both sides.
Yes, for sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
So did I hear unanimity on the U.S. federal, all Democrat?
Well, yeah, but
Well, that's certainly what we're hoping.
that's what we're hoping. I mean, because you're asking for one way or the other, but I think of it probabilistically, and I think, it's like 55-45 against the Republicans at the moment.
Yeah, which would amount to Democratic.
Dems,
So
that's right.
it is actually a one or the other answer. It's either the Democrats or the Republicans.
It is, yeah.
Federally, there's likely to be an election pretty soon, sooner rather than later. Who do we think is going to win that? KJ?
What's his name? The guy from the Bank of England who ran the Bank of England. Because I think Trudeau's got to go. Either if there's a snap election, he will obviously call it and run it. But if there's not, there's rumblings. There's rumblings within the caucus.
Okay, so whether Trudeau goes or whether the new guy comes,
You're
who's going
running
to
a
win?
tight ship here.
Too
Skinny.
right I am. I'm tired of all this.
Who's going to win? I believe Polyev will win the election if Trudeau runs.
That, you mean, in other words, he'll be setting policy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
RJ?
Right now, you're letting KJ get away with an if there, He's
Not really. I mean, like we've already allowed so much flab into this
what if?
conversation.
He said if Trudeau
Yeah,
goes.
exactly. Like
Oh,
if
yeah,
Trudeau doesn't
okay.
go.
I don't care whether Trudeau goes or doesn't go. I don't care if Zippy the chimp ends up being the guy. What I care about is who you think is going to win.
Well, I'm thinking if Zippy the chimp ends up in power, that'll probably be the Conservatives.
Jesus. RJ, who?
Oh, I got to turn my mic down now. Okay. Who? Geez, I have no idea.
You got to guess. That's the whole game.
Can I ask you guys a few questions first?
Yes, 20 questions.
God. Okay, and I do have an answer for you then. But once I give you my answer, you'll give us ours. So I'm just going to put that on hold for a moment and say, isn't it great that we actually are getting the very, very beginnings of pharmacare across the country? Isn't that excellent?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so that's nice. Yes, I'm going to say because of that, then, even with Trudeau, Liberals are going to be in power.
Yeah, I think Poilievre will win, which is, I hate to say it, but I do think
Win
that.
power.
Yeah, and I mean, fairness to both you guys, that whole business of minority governments, when we define win as set policy, the Liberals introduced a lot of policy in the last few years that they would never in a billion years have introduced
Yeah.
if the NDP wasn't holding the gun
That's
to
the
their head.
beauty of our
So-
particular democracy.
Yeah, but when you say set policy determines winner, well, who's setting that policy? So is the NDP the winner of the last election?
No,
I don't
because
think so.
the Liberals
But
also set a bunch of their own policies. So.
anyway, I do think, sadly, I think Poilievre is going to win. Okay, so thank you. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I know this will be after the election, but I always like for us to get on the record and then, because people always marvel at how right we were.
This conversation actually went on to cover a prediction game about some upcoming elections.
Oh, right. They were trying to predict who would win a bunch of elections, provincial, federals, in both Canada and the U.S.
Yeah.
Always interesting to hear people's takes on those.
It is. And what's fascinating here is that it wasn't just about who would win, but the reasons behind their predictions. It gave a real glimpse into how people are viewing the current political landscape.
For example, one person was super confident that the NDP would win the next provincial election, mainly because they felt that they've been so influential in setting policies, even from a minority position.
A bold prediction, for sure.
Right.
But it does highlight how a party can wield considerable power, even without holding a majority. Makes you think about how political influence goes beyond just the number of seats.
And then for the U.S. federal election, there was a lot of talk about the influence of the crypto industry on the Democratic Party. Everyone seemed pretty convinced that the Democrats would win, but barely. And some were even a little concerned about what that crypto influence might mean for policy.
It's a reminder that campaign financing and lobbying have a huge impact on politics.
For sure.
No matter which side of the aisle you're on.
Right.
It's always worth considering who's backing the candidates and what their agendas might be.
Definitely. And then, of course, we can't forget about the Canadian federal election coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
There was a real mix of opinions on that one, whether the current prime minister would stay in power or if someone new would step in.
This raises an important question about how much weight incumbency carries versus the desire for change.
Right.
We often see this tension play out in elections.
Someone even suggested that the current prime minister might face challenges from within his own party.
Oh, wow.
Someone else in the party deciding to run against him.
It's a reminder that political power is always in flux, even within established parties.
Exactly. It's rarely a simple us versus them scenario.
Mm-hmm.
There are internal power struggles and shifting alliances that can dramatically change the game.
For sure.
You done riding a horse?
Oh, yeah, Nelly. I like the wind.
Was your horse's name Nellie?
My horse's name was Toby.
Toby.
Toby?
Ah.
Moby. How you doing?
Did you get to say, hold her, Newt? Hold her, Newt. She's going in the river with my new $50 saddle.
In one of the takes, though, he got going a little bit.
Oh.
And my hat, of course, went like, woo-hoo! Howdy, partner.
It's fun watching the movies where you see guys that can really ride horses and guys that can't. You know, the cavalry troop rides in and the front bunch of guys are just smooth. They're just riding. They're doing the thing.
Oh.
There's always a few guys in there that are just taking a
towards
beating.
the end.
They're just getting pounded up and down. It's always fun.
I've never looked for that. That's funny.
It is.
Well, I
fun.
was pleased that the other two leads were, they just had to get off their horses. They didn't even have to ride them.
Oh.
But there was actually riding doubles for both of them. And I thought, where's my riding double? Come on, man.
You got to get a new agent.
Anyway.
No, you and Tom Cruise insist on doing all your own
Yeah,
stunts.
that's right.
Riding a horse is now a stunt.
Well, of course,
Watch me walk across the room. I'm not scared at all.
riding is one thing, but you know the stirrup on the side of a horse is pretty high. So
Why? You can adjust those.
High
can't
off
you?
the ground, right?
Well, no, you can't adjust them. You want them to be where you're sitting.
Yeah.
So, but to get up there, to get that first foot up there,
Flexibility. Oh my
Doesn't
God.
some unctuous little valet guy come out with a little velvet box?
I thought they
that he
would
puts
haul
down?
out one of those moving stairs things.
well, no, they do have a little step up, but
Even so?
they didn't.
Well, they didn't use it for you.
No, and of course, getting off the horse is the same thing, right? Is because you get off and your foot is still up there,
Yeah.
and it doesn't just smoothly slide out. I'll just be a minute here, I would yell over the horse towards the camera. Hang on now, here I come.
In that position, I wouldn't be yelling anything in case the horse startled it.
Oh man.
And I did come in once, and there was torrential. You know that day where the rain it was the rainbow day,
Yeah.
right? The rain just fucking.
You were
dumped.
out riding on that day.
No. But it was the day after, I think, anyway, so we're in this swampy field, and Toby, my trusty steed,
Special bond between man and horse.
he hit a gopher hole or something.
Ooh.
Or, a hole that was deeper than the rest of what we were riding on. Almost went ass over tea kettle, as they say.
That would have been traumatic for everyone.
Ooh.
Well, like broken leg for the horse, probably a broken leg for you too.
Or many other bones
Or
for
more.
me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Woo! Roll. Hit and roll.
Boy, your SAG membership would be worth something then. Jeez, how about that? Yeah, that was cool. The picture, make sure, are we allowed to use that on the website?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, make sure that gets there. That's
All right.
that's
And
a
any
very fun
context?
picture.
Any context for our listeners?
When Calls the Heart.
When Calls the Heart is the name of the show,
Yeah.
movie, or TV
It's a
series?
TV series, isn't it?
It's in its 12th season.
Yeah. I've seen social media posts about it between, you worked with the lead actor, a woman, somewhere.
Pascal Hutton. And,
Yeah, there you go,
was my
Pascal
daughter
Hutton.
in Arctic Air.
Arctic
yeah.
Air, yeah.
Nice.
So I saw her. She wasn't in any of the scenes, but both times I saw her, it was just her hair, right? I don't know how many hours they spend on just her hair. And she said, oh, yes, it's actually a character. it's its own character. Anyway, it was nice to see her.
And this was a single episode guest.
2 episodes, 3 scenes altogether, all very short and sweet. But you never know. There could be a spin-off series.
Oh, there could be an avalanche of viewer response.
However, it is...
Who's the charming old guy on the horse?
It's a Hallmark series, right?
I didn't know that, but okay.
I didn't. Well, I'm sure I did know, but of course it's 1922, I think. And Uncle Tom said, "Oh yeah, he watches it because Diane watches it because it's Hallmark." But he watches. He says, "I like the time between the horse and the car, right? Because that's when it is when they're just introducing."
Yeah.
Right.
So and they do a little bit of that in the show. I says, does anybody smoke in this show? No, because it's Hallmark. But of course, 80% of the population probably would have smoked at the time, right?
In the 20s?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
I don't actually know. I honestly don't know. When you see old pictures of lower class people, like farmers, I don't recall seeing a lot of them smoking.
Really?
And my thought was, I wonder what it used to cost to smoke.
Right.
You would see all the fancy socialite guys in the movies all smoked.
Back in the slavery days, you'd think that it would be fairly cheap.
A lot of pipes.
Yeah. And usually fancy people do. And no women back then, or very few women in the 20s. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Anyway, my first line of my first was, "Let's cut to the chase." And I thought, what does that mean actually? Like, isn't that a little bit modern?
I think it is.
So I looked it up, and it comes from silent movies.
Yeah.
Or
I was going to guess
movies.
a little later.
It was movies, but I mean, we're talking 1922. How many movies would these guys have seen to the point of where they can say, "Oh, there's the chase scene. Oh yeah, the chase scene was really good, right?"
Yeah. All the nonsense leading up to it was super boring.
Fascinating. But it probably started in a theater, didn't it? As a guy, cut to the chase.
Good.
It would be
good.
be a reviewer. A reviewer would just be saying, "This movie dreadful, except for the action scenes. If they could have just run the opening credits, cut straight to the chase, and then closed, everything would have been great."
I mean, that would be a fairly lowbrow reviewer, right?
Probably, but
I would think, anyway.
That's good, you guys. That's good.
Is the series set in rural Canada?
Yes, but because it's Hallmark, it's kind of this mishmashy American thing where the governor, I had all my stuff with the governor of the territory, I guess, but it was a governor. It wasn't like the MP or whatever.
Yeah. The point was they're not near a city that would be running films.
No, there's a big city somewhere that they go to every once in a while, I think. But I actually asked about that. Anyway, yeah, they live in Hope Valley, and it's a little town right out there at Drydigger Farms, right? It's been there, obviously, for 12 years.
That's a real town or a...
No, it's just all fake.
Yeah, all fake.
But all everything's set up and stays set up.
Right.
It's not like empty buildings. They're the barbershop's there. The kids on. You'd be somebody selling something on a bicycle. I didn't see any horses in town.
Kind of like the Spawn Ranch down in California. Same idea, just stays there and they keep filming.
Do they let tourists in when they're not shooting?
I don't think so.
It's fun because the buildings would actually look way more authentic after they'd been there for a few years, right?
Yeah,
they'd have grass growing around the bottoms of them and things like that.
I wonder if they do any kind of like fan tours.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
I don't know.
Anyways, look for that horse picture, listeners. It's great. And then imagine KJ bouncing along a jaunty gait.
So you're a rancher or a farmer?
Bad guy. I'm a bad guy.
A bad guy rancher?
Bad guy rancher, yep.
And patriarch? Hard to say.
Do you have nasty sons?
Do you order your family around?
No. That's how you would describe a patriarch?
No, a patriarch is the kind of the head of the family. He's usually a grandfather.
Well, we haven't got it. When we get to the spin-off series, we'll probably get into some detail there, but they didn't inform me of any of that.
There's probably a bevy of writers scribbling away in a back room even now, building the backstory.
Method actor that you are, you need all these details. Well, you need a 50-page backstory before you can even walk on set.
Exactly.
And there you go. Rich, here's our next $1 million idea to give to KJ as his retirement gift. You be the guy that goes and spots those deficiencies and volunteers to write the backstory. Just flesh it right out for all those other method actors out there. And then make sure you'll retain the rights to the story so that when the spin-off comes, you're the man.
Now you're talking. But no, I get on there and I think I don't have future scripts even of what I'm going to be in. I don't even have those scripts. Other people in the cast have those scripts. Whatever. Thanks very much. But so I said, and I know one of the producers, and he says, "Oh well, yeah. So this happens to this guy." And but it's just everything that's actually in the episode. There's no, we don't know if he, we don't know his history or
Well, that's the funny thing too. Like some of these series that are just amazing high-end series, and then you learn that they actually write them as they go. Some of them don't have a predefined arc.
Yeah.
And they just basically, they don't even know what's going to happen 2 episodes or maybe even next episode.
Well,
kind of interesting.
I was laughing there thinking, as long as the producer doesn't say, oh, this guy, look, he falls off the horse and breaks his leg. That's coming. KJ doesn't want to hear that kind of writing.
Oh, you're shot in the pig pen.
They've got the script already filed away in a drawer someplace.
And by the way, we can't afford a stunt person.
That's right. Toby's getting pretty old, so we'll have those guys ride together. That's awful.
No,
Sorry,
but
that's pretty
the other
grim.
thing that's also weird is that, so I put myself on tape, send it in. Oh, they're offering you the role. Well, okay, that's great. But then nobody ever says, do it exactly like your audition. They don't even say that. So I'm assuming they want that at least, right? Like, but nobody comes up and says, like, the directors are coming and going too, right? They
Multiple, one director per episode, roughly?
I think they do 2.
Okay.
They do block. Maybe 1 per episode, and they might reuse them once or twice in a season. I actually don't know, but nobody comes up and says, "Okay, this guy is blah blah blah. Make sure we see that," or "This guy is blah blah blah." Have you
ever tried asking them, say, thanks for the gig and everything, but why me? Ever try that? See what happens?
No.
But because it does inform your future audition tapes, right? Like if you uniformly got responses that said, you look like Chris Kringle in 34th Street, your next set of audition tapes are going to get a lot simpler.
Yeah, I suppose.
Just a thought. I wonder.
No, I guess I could be more proactive, but you don't even have time to do that, right? There's no time to and you don't know if the director is actually
the guy that saw the tape anyway,
or the person to talk to about it.
Right, because
they're not
the casting director
running the show and shit. So anyway,
just a thought. I just want, because I would wonder the same. Like, was it the shirt I wore that day? Can't be the cologne because that doesn't show up on tape. What was it?
Anyway, all fun and games.
Let's talk about something a little more lighthearted.
Okay.
Someone shared some stories about being an actor on that show, One Calls the Heart.
Oh, I love that show.
They played a bad guy rancher, which sounds kind of fun.
It does sound fun.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to get a peek behind the curtain of the entertainment industry.
It is. You never know what kind of insights will emerge from those experiences.
Yeah.
Like they talked about the challenges of filming with horses, which makes sense. Animals can be unpredictable on set.
Oh, I bet those scenes were a lot more complicated to shoot than they look on screen.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that what we see as effortless entertainment often involves a lot of hard work behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Oh, on my career trajectory here, attendance. You guys both saw attendance, the P-tape. I call it the P-tape.
P-tape is what I recognize.
Is at Whistler Film Festival this year with my daughter's first feature, with my wife in a rather large role in that. So,
Didn't you get cut from your daughter's film?
Yes.
So how do you feel about that? Are you hoping that the P-tape...
actually.
Didn't the P-tape wins and they get
crushes
humiliated?
them. Yeah. Accolades for the P-tape and nothing for their
Just
docu.
stirring the pot over here. Just stirring the pot, that's all.
And they also mentioned going to film festivals with their daughter, who's also involved in filmmaking.
Ah, that's nice. It's always heartwarming to hear about families sharing passions like that.
It is. It speaks to the power of creativity and how it can bring people together even across generations.
Definitely.
And there was this funny bit about how often you see people smoking in period pieces,
Oh, yeah.
even if it might not have been historically accurate.
Right. Ah, yes. The rule of cool often trumps historical accuracy in entertainment.
Right.
Sometimes a visually striking image or scene just takes precedence, even if it bends the truth a bit.
It's a good reminder to take everything we see on screen, especially in historical dramas, with a grain of salt.
For sure.
But then the conversation took a more serious turn. When the actor brought up how much the film and TV industry has been struggling lately,
Yeah, I've heard that.
especially in places like Vancouver and Los Angeles,
Right.
they said production in those areas is down something like 60%.
That's a staggering statistic, and it
Mm.
really underscores the massive shifts happening in the entertainment industry.
And their take was that it's all because of platforms like TikTok and Instagram. You know those short-form videos that everyone's glued to these days?
Right.
Younger generations are spending less and less time watching traditional TV or movies,
It's a trend we can't ignore.
right?
The rise of short-form video content has completely changed how people consume entertainment.
How so?
Well, it's all about instant gratification and bite-sized content that can be easily consumed on the go.
Even I have to admit, I find myself getting sucked into those short videos sometimes. The algorithms are seriously good at figuring out what keeps you scrolling.
They're incredibly sophisticated. They track your viewing habits, your likes, even how long you linger on certain types of content. All of that data gets fed into an algorithm that's constantly refining itself to keep you engaged.
Hooked.
Or hooked, yes.
It's like they're competing for our attention spans. Traditional TV movies have to adapt to keep up.
Exactly. And some are doing just that.
No, and no, Susan flies tomorrow to Newport Beach, California for the Newport Beach Film Festival,
nice.
which where Crash premiered in 2012, I believe was the year. So it's an up there film festival, and that's with Hunting Matthew Nichols.
That's her film?
Lucy's, yeah. Well, Lucy's produced. Lucy was in it, but got cut herself.
Oh,
So
now
there
she
you go.
knows how it feels. Combative today. But there's a related money-making idea that I did have. It's on our list, and it had to do with those audition tapes. Don't know if you saw that. When you do an audition tape, typically I know it's just you standing in front of like a green background with little bits of tape all over you to show what size you are, something like that. But I think that you do have an opportunity to create a little bit more of an audition tape. Have strangers passing back and forth in the background, strangers that you happen in real life to know quite well.
Extras.
For scale?
Yeah, for scale and for just to enrich the audition experience.
Coffee
Like,
and cookies.
you know, and then you could start out a thing where you sort of said, I sent a poll to all the people that received audition tapes this year that I'm aware of, and I asked them, please tell me your number one favorite, most compelling audition tape. And then you start giving out awards for best audition tape. And then you start giving out awards for best extras on audition tape. And that's where you and I come in, RJ. We stand a chance to become supporting actors in audition tapes. I think
Also, there's an award for the best
Yeah.
background performer.
like they're like
in
mini micro movies. That's the whole. I think
I like it.
excellent concept.
Well, did I tell you that I did an audition for Allegiance, which is the cop show in Surrey, set in Surrey?
Oh, yeah, we've seen it. Sue watches that quite
Yeah.
often, yeah.
And the guy starts out, he's doing the eulogy for his wife. It's the opening of the show, I think. He's doing the eulogy for his wife, who he loves, obviously, and he actually breaks down and can't go on, and somebody ushers him out back, and then out back you see him, and he can't go back out there. And then the next scene you see him, he's getting into a bathtub, and he just breaks down. And there's a little note on the casting that says, go for it, because this guy's by himself. He is distraught because he's lost his wife. And so I did it in my bathtub. Like I set up the camera, and I can cut it and everything. So you just see me sinking down and then breaking down. And I was pinned, but I didn't get it.
Speaking of adapting, that reminds me of the funny story about the actor's unique audition tape. You know, the bathtub one.
Oh, yes. the Allegiance audition. It's a perfect example of how actors are constantly trying to find ways to stand out and make a memorable impression.
So they were going for this role where the character was grieving the loss of his wife.
Okay.
And the casting notes basically said, let it all out.
Wow.
So they decided to film themselves in the bathtub, slowly sinking down until they were fully submerged and breaking down in tears.
I can't believe they went to those lengths. It definitely shows dedication and a willingness to go the extra mile.
It's a shame they didn't get the part.
There you go, you see?
Yeah.
Once again, I'm ahead of the curve.
On this, I know, Skinny.
Like, all you needed to do
Little
was
bit of-
have Buddy come in and lick the side of your head while you're sinking down in the tub. That's all. Then you could burst into tears and send that in. And then you could just build from there. The whole thing, it's
Best
right
animal
there.
performance audition tape.
It's right there for us. Let's really enrich audition tapes submissions. I think that's the way to go.
Oh, Skinny, I should get you over here to read with me one day. You can just be my reader.
Oh yeah, you should do that.
Press
actually.
play on the
That would be fun.
on the phone and be my reader.
That would be fun. Huh.
And we can send them out to our listeners.
Yeah, well, then
Wait,
we'd have
listeners
rights.
/ viewers in that case.
But it does make you wonder, what if audition tapes were more creative? Like almost mini movies with extras and special effects.
It would be amazing. It could be a way for actors to showcase their range and creativity beyond just reciting lines in front of a camera. They could really bring a character to life even in a short format.
It would be a lot of work, but it could also level the playing field for actors who maybe don't have access to expensive acting coaches or industry connections.
That's a really interesting point. It could democratize the audition process and give more actors a chance to shine.
It's something to think about. Who knows? Maybe elaborate audition tapes will become the norm someday.
Another quick note. I know you guys want to get onto your stuff, and oh my God, we're halfway through there.
No, that's good.
But one of the guys on When Calls the Heart is married to one of the big casting directors in town. And I said, what's she doing? And she says, slowest in 30 years. He says the business is down 60%. And not only in Vancouver, but it's down the same amount in LA too, like across the board. And so I wondered what that was. And so I asked around and stuff. And people would say, well, kids these days, they'll spend their hours on TikTok and Instagram, and they'll spend TV hours doing that, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things. And I asked Dylan about that, and he said, no, often he'll do TikTok while he's watching TV, right? Or he'll be on his phone while watching TV. He didn't seem to think that it would take away from his TV time, but I kind of think in the general population it is. However, I looked up a little bit more, and I don't know if you guys know Rust Valley, Cromer's favorite show, shot in Savannah, I think, outside of Vernon. It's a mechanic shop. It's a reality show, and they do cars. And Cromer, I'm sure Cromer wanted me to get my truck up there so I could meet the guys and be part of it. Anyway, the guy who produces that show realized that they could do. He just started a YouTube channel. The same Rust Valley, I think I haven't looked that up, but he said you can do almost the same product on people's phones. There's no crew, there's no post, you don't have to mix and diddle it. Well, I mean, you have to do some of that, but it's not. He said the cost is phenomenal, and people are watching that instead of. It's where the advertisers go, right? It's wherever advertisers figure that people are watching, that's where they're going to go. And if it's not TV, then they just move away, or movies, I suppose, and it just goes down.
Now, I was going to say something about, my experience, just like everyone else, is totally subjective, but I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of hours of TV I've watched in the last 3 years. And actually, it's almost zero, because I canned my TV quite a while ago. And I just don't miss it at all. I consume my entertainment almost totally online.
Yeah.
And as far as Rust Valley goes, you look at Vice Garage, which I've mentioned on here before.
Right.
Those guys, I don't know. It's still unclear to me what the revenue picture from YouTube really is. But I think if you have like more than 1 million viewers, it's substantial.
I think it is too.
And I think you're quite right about production costs. Yes, The Vice Grip Garage guy probably has people that does his editing and production stuff now, and he does in-segment ads for products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that is all way less involved than an entire town standing outside Dreidiger Farms for 13 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like I don't even know how TV is still going on, to be honest. I don't really get it.
The other thing I thought was that people can now binge whatever they want. Like you can watch Friends. You can watch 10 seasons of Friends, and that has to take away from actual advertised TV time, right?
Right.
And you can do that with anything on a half a dozen streaming sites.
Yeah, and the popular TV series have difficult choices, right? If they allow their stuff to be run on YouTube, they probably make some money off that, but they also undercut their TV audience. Now, how do they balance those things? I have no idea how they make those decisions. But yeah,
Well, you got to think that any kind of decent show, it doesn't even have to be period, but period is sort of exciting because you can't just you can't YouTube that kind of stuff. But I'm watching Slow Horses. Did you?
It's a great show.
Yeah, I'm only so far, but
we rewatched the final episode of the previous season because it's been so long. So we're about to start in the new season.
that is a great show.
But you can't cheap out on that kind of stuff. If you want that kind of quality TV, you got to put the money into it, right? Of course, you also have to get the advertising out of it, right, somehow. Or
I wonder what the conversations among the TV producing community are like when they start thinking, could we possibly get all our investment back out of YouTube if we just produced this series exclusively for, say, YouTube? They must have the conversation. You mentioned Friends as an example. I wonder how many millions of people have watched the entire Friends thing. And I wonder where the money for that went to. And I wonder how that money compared to their TV revenue, probably peanuts, but you know what I mean? Like, that's got to be a conversation that they're having these days.
No doubt.
yeah,
But I think the outcome of the conversation probably points towards streaming services because that's where it's at right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's also YouTube Premium. I don't know if they're starting to show series. Like, I don't pay for YouTube Premium.
I don't either, because I thought it was all about just avoiding advertising.
but
No, it's more, unfortunately, it's more than that, so it's expensive. Like, they want you to be listening to their music service as well, and I'm already on Apple Music. Like, I think YouTube Premium's like $20 a month or something.
But they don't produce, actually.
I don't know if they're there yet. I thought that they had a series or two that went straight to YouTube Premium, but
Yeah. See, and I wonder about, for instance, I watched the entire Chinese drama, historical drama, Word of Honor, 36 episodes on YouTube. And there's another one called The Disguiser about Japan, China, pre-Second World War. And those are full-blown productions, and they probably weren't originally done for YouTube, but they're running on YouTube.
right.
And you kind of think, if you're into TV, you're at least approaching the spending arena that typical YouTube productions are in, right? Like, I just wonder.
Are those fairly old, both of them?
I don't know, not 2-3 years.
Oh.
Not that old.
Oh.
Not that old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's time for your shift to TikTok anyway.
Yeah. Again, pivot. We're right here.
What are they? What is TikTok? 16 seconds worth?
I don't know.
Is everything 16
That's the
seconds?
thing. Like, I only go in there once every 8 months.
I don't
or
even
a
do
year,
that.
and then I pop in and I go, "This is pretty cool," and I enjoy like 4 or 5 of those videos,
And then you get on.
and then I
with your
forget
life.
about. I'm done with TikTok for another 8 or 10 months.
That's the same
Yeah,
with
yeah.
me. I just have. That's funny, listeners. Let us know. I would love to know. Assuming that the demographic for this podcast is, as I suspect, that is fossils. Sorry, no insult intended. Like, do you guys do the same? Because that's exactly what I do too. About every year or so, I think about TikTok and I look at it and it's amusing, and then I don't ever look at it again. It's just not on my list.
There was the worry about the Chinese government's involvement in TikTok and are they spying on you and all that stuff, but that's kind of...
I don't know about you guys. That
Gone
was
by the
entirely
wayside.
well. It was entirely peripheral to me in the first place. Like, if the Chinese government wants to spy on me, fill your pants. Like,
Yeah.
what are you? Not going to learn much spying on me.
Because I get lost on Facebook. They have this is new on my feed. I'll just get every so often shorts. They're just shorts.
Yeah.
And, and I'll get lost in those real fast. And I think a lot of those are actual TikToks, but sometimes
I believe
just
some of
shorts.
them are. Some of them are subsets of their YouTube content too. And they're also Instagram content, subsets of Instagram.
Oh, okay.
content,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which,
Yeah, I don't understand all the rules, but I know all those youngsters are doing all that shit.
yeah, and not watching TV, I would have thought, but what do I know?
They mentioned how the producers of Rust Valley Restorers started a YouTube channel to reach a wider audience. It's a smart move going where the viewers are instead of trying to lure them back to old formats.
And it's not just about reaching new viewers either.
Right.
People's watching habits have changed.
Yeah.
We're used to watching what we want when we want it without having to wait a week for the next episode.
The age of binge watching is here, and streaming services have capitalized on that shift brilliantly. They offer vast libraries of content available on demand, which is incredibly appealing to viewers who want to control their viewing experience.
But it also means traditional TV and movies have to work harder to stand out.
It's a crowded marketplace where viewers have more choices than ever before.
So it's good for us, but bad for them.
It's a double-edged sword. More choice is great for viewers, but it also creates a challenge for content creators to break through the noise and capture people's attention.
It makes you wonder how the entertainment industry will make money in this new landscape. Traditional advertising models aren't as effective anymore.
It's a challenge they're still grappling with. Subscription-based streaming services are becoming the norm. But even those are facing pressure to keep costs down while delivering high-quality content that keeps viewers engaged. It's a fascinating evolution to witness.
I think it all comes back to the idea of adaptability. Those who are willing to embrace new technologies and experiment with new formats will be the ones who thrive.
Absolutely. And it's not just about adopting to technology, but to changing audience expectations and consumption habits. The entertainment industry is in a constant state of flux, and those who can anticipate those changes and stay ahead of the curve will be the ones who succeed.
Guys want to do listener mail?
Okay.
We better.
Now it's okay.
We'll give it a try. And if, because I'm kind of wasted, we'll see if I can even do a good read.
Okay, all right, Jay, that's
Well,
that's okay, man.
Okay.
You'll
Give
be
it
good.
your
You'll
best
be great.
shot.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, no.
Is that you guys?
Yeah. that coffee didn't help, man.
Lee from Courtney.
Oh, wow.
Hey,
man.
haven't heard. Nice.
Long time.
Hi, dogs. Clearly, you grew up in a kinder, gentler place than I did. You were talking about participation medals and how even we boomers got them. So we, and by we, I mean other boomers, not including myself or the dogs, should stop chastising the system of rewarding today's kids, no matter whether they won, lost, or did little more than show up. And you mentioned that we had no right to bleat about this because we got those things ourselves. I'm a couple of years older than PJ, but basically we're all in the same bateau, as it were, in terms of age. But when I grow up, we sure as heck knew who won and who did not. Maybe it's because I grew up in rural Saskatchewan, and we just had no time for cooing over the nice job one kid did on the fence mending when clearly the cows were walking right over it. When I would come home with a test score of 98% and show it to my dad, he'd ask what about the other 2%?
Oh, Dad.
I didn't get. Our school field days gave out red, blue, and white, first, second, and third ribbons, and that's it. I got a gold in the 1967 participation competition, and I still have that little badge today. Of course, I don't take it out and show it around anymore because it might cause others to feel bad. She puts bad in quotes. If you read all of this in a Walter Brennan type voice, I guess I should have read this first.
Or Wilfred Brimley. Or just the old guy, the Abe Simpson voice.
You'll get the correct codger tone I'm going for, and which I strive daily to avoid. Fantastic, utterly.
Fabulous, fabulous. I will just confess, I had another one of those forbidden private conversations, so this will be redundant, but only to Lee. And it was to say, yeah, no, like in elementary school, we had those same ribbons, and they were just those three. And it didn't take away at all from my huge enjoyment of sports day that I never was winning ribbons. It just didn't matter. In the 1967 thing she mentioned, the Centennial Fitness Program. I won a bronze.
Participation.
Thank
Nice.
God I won a bronze. And they gave everybody pins for participating. I looked it up.
Yeah.
But nobody who got a pin thought anything other than they got a pin for showing up. Nobody thought if they felt bad about not winning, the pin didn't help one little bit. Because Rosslyn was just as unforgiving as any other little small place at the time. But the point there was, even then, you got a participation medal from those guys. Sports Day, you didn't. And I'll just say this, Jets rule. They had 4 houses at McLean Elementary School for Sports Day. Jets, Comets, Bombers, Torpedoes, I think. Can't remember.
I don't remember that.
I think it was Jets, Comets, Bombers for sure. Rockets, not Torpedoes, Rockets. I was a Jet, Jets rule.
Comets being the only non-military one, but
Yeah, I
still
think
fairly, violent.
they were running out of space sort of aeronautical type stuff.
No,
But I was a Jet.
Yeah, I
They should have
remember
had
that.
destroyers. That would have been another good one.
Houses in high school. The Haida.
What were they?
Yes, I remember those.
Haida. The Squamish. No.
I don't remember
those, and I remember being
anything.
largely unaware of which house I was in. Like, I think maybe it was the end of an era when people cared about houses or something. Did you know what house you were in, KJ?
I think I was in Haida. But was it just grade 8 or was it
Maybe that's when it ended.
I
or
honestly
maybe-
don't remember a thing about houses.
Well, maybe
in high
it
school.
had ended. Maybe it was just in grade 8.
Yeah, maybe.
You're grade 8.
Because
Yeah.
Because I know when I came to Canada, I learned those house names, and they were new names to me. Haida. Oh, I had to learn what that was.
Yeah.
But didn't you enter high school the same year I did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet I don't remember anything at all about that.
Yeah. I think it was the end of an era.
But I still think, I bet you even in rural Saskatchewan, there were participation medals, whether she said, I'll go. We'll have it out. Into the octagon. We'll settle it.
Into the octagon. Nice, Skinny.
But it's interesting how we keep coming back to this idea of adaptation, not just in the entertainment industry, but, and how we think and how we approach challenges in general.
It is a recurring theme for sure, and it ties in nicely with that listener feedback we touched on earlier, the one about participation trophies.
Oh, right. That's right. It seemed like this listener had a very different experience growing up compared to those who, received participation trophies. They talked about growing up in rural Saskatchewan, and there was this strong emphasis on hard work and earning your rewards.
Right.
Participation trophies just weren't a part of the culture.
It's a valuable reminder that perspectives on this issue can vary greatly, depending on your upbringing and background.
Right.
There's no single right way to view it. It's more about understanding the different values and experiences that shape how we see the world.
And it's not like recognizing effort is a new concept either. They even brought up how Canada had a national fitness program back in the 1960s that awarded participation pins.
Exactly. It's been around for a while.
Mm.
It makes you wonder if the whole debate about participation trophies is really more about generational differences in how we view success and achievement.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of both, right? It's about acknowledging effort and encouraging participation, especially for kids, but also about recognizing and celebrating excellence. There has to be a balance.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's about finding that sweet spot between fostering a growth mindset where effort and improvement are valued, and also acknowledging that achieving excellence requires dedication, perseverance, and sometimes a bit of healthy competition.
Hey, let's go to the AI promo for the Shed Dogs.
Oh, right. The one I sent today.
No,
Okay.
the original one.
Well, either one, because I wasn't clear. Okay, set it up, RJ.
All right. I stumbled across an AI that will look at a website or listen to a podcast, or you can give it other kind of text input, and it will generate a podcast that consists of 2 fake people talking to each other. It's quite remarkable. And so what I did was I fed it. The first thing I fed was the Shed Dogs website. So what it did was it read all our text descriptions going back and back, starting with the most recent episode as of this recording, which was episode 185 at the time, and then 184, 183, and they worked their way back. And it's this kind of, I don't think smarmy is the right word, but there's a couple, one male, one female, and they're podcast hosts. And we'll just put right here an example of what happened when I fed it our website. Have a listen.
All right, so get this, today's deep dive. It's all about this podcast called Shed Dogs. And you know the best part. You, our listener, you sent us all these blog posts and episode descriptions from their website.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so basically it's like these three self-described old guys, Kevin, Patrick, and Richard, and they just get together and talk about stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The premise itself is interesting,
Yeah.
especially these days. In a world where every podcast is so polished, Shed Dogs is like that, that breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
It's raw conversational.
it is.
Almost like you're hanging out with them in their shed.
And the range of episode titles, too. I mean, we've got Costco underwear, we have berry pickin', and even one about a shell game scam in Paris.
Wow.
And wait for it, insights from using golden teacher mushrooms.
Okay, now this begs the question.
Yeah.
Who are these guys?
Yeah.
And why are people tuning in?
Yeah, right. So let's dig in. Okay, so from what I've gathered, Kevin's an actor and artist. I think that explains some of the more, creative episodes.
Huh.
Patrick's into economics and travel, and Richard seems to be like the boating and city life guru.
So it's really interesting how those different backgrounds, they kind of weave their way into the content of the podcast.
Totally.
It's like they're creating this tapestry of experiences
Yeah.
that listeners can really connect with.
And get this, they're not just like chatting amongst themselves, right? They have this recurring segment called Snappers with Kevin. Apparently it's hilarious.
Okay.
And they even respond to listener mail.
That's cool.
I know, right? Oh, and they brainstorm these money-making ideas. MMIs, as they call them.
MMIs.
Which I'm guessing are more for laughs than anything else.
Well, that's what's so cool about podcasting, right?
Yeah.
It's not about being an expert or a celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being real and, sharing your experiences
Yeah.
and connecting with people.
So true. Okay, so one theme that really jumps out to me is this old guy's perspective, right? They talk about aging, changing times, even generational differences.
It's interesting how they approach it, though, right? Because instead of just complaining about,
Kids these days.
yeah, exactly, like kids these days,
Right.
they actually use humor and reflection to make observations about the world, through the lens of experience,
Yeah.
which is refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. But it's not all deep thoughts and existential pondering, though. They talk about, everyday stuff like Costco runs,
Yeah.
berry picking, dealing with city bureaucracy.
Right, like relatable slice of life stuff,
Yeah.
but with a philosophy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they throw in like travel tales from Portugal, Maine, even Paris.
Oh.
They even talk about navigating like immigration and passport issues,
Oh,
which, let's be honest, we've all been there.
we've all been there.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And their travel episodes, they go beyond just tourist traps and landmarks, right?
Right, right.
They really dig into cultural nuances and reflect on their personal experiences, finding humor in the unexpected.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then there's the whole like art, creativity, and personal growth angle.
Okay.
Kevin's journey as an artist comes up a lot, and even Richard like exploring podcasting itself. That's pretty meta, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It really challenges this idea that learning and creativity,
Yeah.
has an expiration date.
Yeah.
These guys are proof that you can keep growing and exploring no matter your age.
Okay, so we've got these three guys, they're different backgrounds, these funny segments, they're engaging with listeners, some big themes.
Mm-hmm.
What's the takeaway? What makes Shed Dogs more than just, a bunch of random conversations?
Well, that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
If we think of Shed Dogs as like a cultural artifact,
Ooh, love it when you get all academic on us. Well,
Well,
great.
it actually tells us a lot about a specific demographic.
Yeah.
Older adults. It challenges our assumptions about their interests, their concerns, and even their sense of humor.
Do you think that old guy's perspective, do you think it limits their appeal or do you think it broadens it?
That's a great question.
Yeah. I'm just curious what your take on that is.
I mean, it could go either way, right?
Yeah.
Some listeners might feel like they can't relate at all,
Yeah.
but others might be drawn to their unique perspective.
Good point.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, they're telling stories and they're connecting with people in a way that's really refreshing, especially in today's, digital world.
Exactly. Because in a sea of social media and all this carefully crafted online personas, Shed Dogs is like this breath of authenticity.
Yeah, it is.
These guys are just being themselves, and people seem to love it.
Now that brings up another thought-provoking question. What can we learn about society and culture today by looking at something like shed dogs?
Yeah, are people yearning for authentic connection and real conversations? Are they tired of all this overly polished online content? Or maybe they just want to hear different perspectives that challenge the norm? Whoa. Those are some heavy questions.
I know, right?
But before we dive into like a full-on sociology debate here, I think it's time we get into some specific episodes.
Okay.
Because some of these titles were just too good to pass up.
Absolutely. Let's dig into the details and see what gems we can uncover.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, let's jump into a few specific episodes here.
Okay.
One that caught my eye was Scrimshaw Dogs, episode 176.
Okay.
Richard talks about this boating trip he took. And instead of just, your typical travelogue, he dives into, urban boating rules, hazards, even captain etiquette.
It's amazing how they can find podcast gold in like everyday experience.
I know, right?
It's like they have this knack for turning the ordinary into something extraordinary.
Exactly. And they weave in, other elements too, like those ever-present snappers.
And there's even this whole discussion about what they call the seamy underbelly of the dental industry.
What?
Yeah, they talk about this mysterious figure who collects old crowns and bridges.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to listen to that episode.
It never listened to our episodes, by the way.
It just read the transcripts.
It just read our blurbs. That's it. And generated that. So listeners, what you just listened to was generated from, it's a Google tool, actually.
Notebook. It's called Notebook.
Notebook LM.
LM.
And LM probably means learning model, where it kind of ingests a whole bunch of stuff. And it ingests a bunch of those kind of, because I listen to podcasts like that from time to time. And they're just like that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I actually thought it had listened. It just scanned the website for all that.
So what I found remarkable about that is the first thing you hear is, I cannot believe how much like a real podcast this sounds like. Because I have heard real podcasts where it's pretty clear, if you listen carefully, that it's actually scripted, but supposed to not sound scripted.
Yeah.
They have a conversational tone, and yeah, that's right, Reg. When I saw it, that's kind of what I thought too.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. So they kind of are always building on what each other's saying. They don't, bicker like Skin and I might. They just it's all.
That's why they're artificial.
Right?
Well, the fascinating thing about it was it infers a lot. Like, it is able to draw inferences from what we've written on the website about who we are and what we do, and what we've said in the blurbs about what we're going to talk about, and further, how we've said it. It then infers that we have a sense of humor. It then infers that we are somewhat self-deprecating. It infers that we cover a broad range of disparate topics, and we just wander from thing to thing. It infers all of this stuff just from the blurbs, which is pretty wild.
Well, I just really enjoyed it because it's a big advertising thing, right? It just made it sound great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're very interesting subjects to listen to, obviously.
Well, I found that for the first 5 or 6 minutes.
Exactly. Then it starts to get 22 minutes is way too long.
Yeah. We had a 21, I think, minute sample. And all it did was march back episode after episode, as Rich said, and got all the way back to like episode 173 or something like that.
Oh, further.
No, 134.
Yeah, 134.
Yeah.
But quite repetitive. And because I'm me, my takeaway was 2 possibles. This thing is not very good at differentiating one thing from another. Like, they got really repetitive. Or, boys, we're in a bit of a creative rut. Because it's just the same thing again. And there was nothing different about the blurbs. After you listen to 5 or 6 minutes of it, the blurbs produced all the same impression all the way back to 130 whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what I thought.
Well, probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
But I think, if you were a podcast that reviews podcasts, which that's what this sounds like, you would probably only want to spend
5 minutes
5 or
tops.
7 minutes on a podcast, then move on to your next topic.
Yeah.
Oh, and what's this week's podcast of the week? Well, Jane, I'm glad you asked that. That kind of thing.
I did think it was really remarkable. I like you, Mob, I really was flattered by it.
Yeah.
And I thought, That's interesting. So this thing, like, it would be fun to try and feed it something you knew to be pretty awful, pretty inane, boring, whatever you wanted, and see what kind of tone it came up
sound
with.
just as good.
Because the tone it came up with for ours was, like you said, pretty flattering.
Peppy.
Peppy, flattering. It made us sound interesting and all that stuff. So maybe we are, or maybe it's just set up to promote everything that it hears that way.
Well,
right?
did you give it any? Is there any instructions that you give it? Like you don't?
Well, I've learned that there is now. So
Can you say like we want a somber podcast?
No, I
about?
didn't. At the time, there was no. You just pointed at something or feed it some text. There was no tuning. Now you can actually say, "Please do this in the style of." I'm sure that you could say, please be somber when you describe this. I think you can do that now, but no, what listeners, what you just heard was just basically feeding in our website without any hint as to what we wanted.
www.sheddogs.ca.
But I tell you, the next thing I did, I fed it one of our episodes. Specifically, I fed it episode 185, I think, which is the one where I talk about participation trophies.
Participation counts, yeah.
This one, because they're listening to audio.
Yeah.
Except for I'm sure that this 2-stage process, probably stage 1 is to transcribe it. I'm guessing.
Of course you're right.
I'm guessing.
Of course you're right.
Stage 2, and then stage 3 is to have them say it. But anyway, it was weird. Basically, at that point, instead of doing, what did you think of this episode, Jane? They talked as if they were the ones that did the episode.
Oh.
And then we, because when I was a kid, and there's a great photo of this, I was in a soapbox derby or whatever you call it.
That is pretty
A
interesting.
kart race, and we got participation trophies. That's right. You did, didn't you, Todd? And tell me more about that. And so it was weird.
That's bizarre.
And what was even more bizarre is that this thing is just, I've said it before, these are parlor tricks. This thing is not thinking. There's no intelligence, really. It's just looking at all the people that do podcasts like this, that not like Shed Dogs, but like the smarmy kind of 2 people podcast.
The ones you don't want to
What
listen
do
to.
they tend to say to lead into each other, for example?
Right.
How do they pick up on threads that each other say? It's kind of just what word should come after these 5 words?
Right.
Okay, well, now that I've added that word, what would be another good word to put after that? It's all just a parlor trick.
That's why I thought the inference thing was so remarkable.
This parlor trick doesn't work well when they're trying to pretend that they're the podcasters. There's 3 of us. There's 2 of them. They get mixed up as to who. Like all of a sudden, it's the woman who got the participation trophies. Yeah, Ben, I did get that. And I think, we were all pointing guns at each other. That's right, I wasn't I? And they're just confused. And so I'll send you that.
It's also interesting to speculate what would be the purpose of creating a thing that did that transposed somebody else's output to sound like it was its own. So if you're using that thing, are you trying to create your own content by absolutely straight up ripping off somebody else's? Is that what the purpose of that tool is, I wonder?
The tool, yeah, I'm a little unclear. That the tool is meant to be a good summary thing, and I think maybe to be used for marketing purposes. It's not just an audio tool. There's other parts to this tool that I haven't even looked at. I think it will summarize in written form without that conversational feel. It does a number of things.
But I wonder why they would ever change it from 3 other people talking to we are talking.
Yeah, because it's just confused. But I'm going to send it one of our episodes, and I'm going to tell it, give a review of this episode, which was recorded by other people, and give us what you think, and keep it down to 5 minutes. And I'll see what I can come up with, and then tack it on the end of, the episode that we're going to publish. Or I can just wait until this comes out and then at the end of this episode, do a summary. Because then people will understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, then
even though by then they'll already have heard about this from some other source. But
no, they won't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Our demographic are not got their finger on the pulse of stuff like this, he said insultingly.
ChatGPT was kind of like that. We had a chance to talk to Cam early about ChatGPT, and by the time our episode came out, people were starting to...
Yeah. That I found that thing pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in speculating. Like, for instance, even Even the idea that you're going to do, like, who needs to automate the review of a podcast? I guess if you were going to automate, it's not just podcasts, you can automate the review of anything that is accessed by a URL, presumably. Just what the point of the tool is, what it is intended to be used for primarily. Like, why? Who needs this service exactly, and why? I don't know. I guess if you were going to read Moby Dick and you wanted a summary of it,
But
you could use that tool for it if you could get a digital version of Moby Dick.
Yeah, because it's past copyright. You can actually point it at one of the many.
I wonder what it would do with that.
Yeah, that would be kind of fun to do.
Jeez.
Okay, well,
It was a fun thing, though.
yeah,
That was enjoyable.
Yep.
To fool with that.
yeah. So yeah, maybe we'll just wait till this episode comes out and just pop it into the after show. Okay, anything else before we wrap up?
No, I don't think I have. I'm
Okay.
sure I forgot stuff.
See you, everybody.
But speaking of innovation, the conversation took a turn towards the world of artificial intelligence, which is another game changer in its own right.
Yes, they were discussing this AI tool called Notebook LM.
Notebook LM.
It can analyze websites, podcasts, even just text documents to generate summaries and even create conversations that sound incredibly realistic.
It's amazing how far AI has come. It's almost like having a virtual assistant that can process information and even communicate in a human-like way.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it has the potential to revolutionize so many aspects of our lives, including how we create and consume content.
They actually tested it out by feeding Notebook LM the Shed Dogs website,
Okay.
and the results were pretty impressive.
Really?
It was able to mimic the host's conversational style and even pick up on their sense of humor and the range of topics they cover.
It speaks to how sophisticated natural language processing has become. AI can now understand and interpret human language with a level of nuance that was unimaginable just a few years ago.
But then they decided to get really ambitious and feed Notebook LM an actual episode of the podcast.
Oh.
And that's where things got a bit wonky.
What happened?
It seems the AI got a little confused about who was speaking.
Oh, no.
And ended up creating a conversation that felt disjointed and didn't quite capture the dynamic between the three hosts.
It's a reminder that AI, as impressive as it is, still has limitations.
For sure.
It's excellent at recognizing patterns and mimicking existing content,
Right.
but it can struggle with originality and truly understanding the nuances of human interaction, especially in a group setting.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's still early days for this kind of technology, but it's clear that AI has the potential to revolutionize how we create and consume content.
Absolutely.
Imagine a world where AI can help us brainstorm ideas, generate scripts, even create entire movies.
The possibilities are mind-boggling, both in terms of the creative potential and the ethical considerations.
Right. We have to be mindful of the risks of AI, especially when it comes to issues like authorship plagiarism and the potential for misuse.
You're right. We can't just blindly embrace new technology without thinking critically about its implications. We need to have open and honest conversations about the role of AI in society and ensure that we're using it responsibly and ethically.
It's a lot to unpack, but it's crucial that we engage with these issues and make informed decisions about how we want to interact with AI.
Absolutely. And part of that involves recognizing both the potential benefits and the potential risks of AI. It's not about being pro-AI or anti-AI, but about being informed and making conscious choices about how we want to integrate this technology into our lives.
Yeah, it really is a balancing act, isn't it? Embracing the potential of AI while also acknowledging those ethical complexities and, the potential downsides. It's a conversation we need to keep having as this technology continues to evolve. It makes me think about those times when we talked about how our brains can trick us into overlooking the obvious, even when we think we're being thorough.
Right.
Maybe we need to apply that same kind of awareness to how we approach these bigger issues.
What do you mean?
Well, like with the where to look list, we talked about how helpful it can be to jot down those usual spots where you lose things to give your brain a roadmap. What if we applied that same concept to problem solving in general?
You mean like a where to look list for solutions?
Oh.
I like that idea. Instead of getting bogged down by the complexity of a problem, you take a step back and create a list of potential approaches or resources you could explore.
Exactly. It could be anything from brainstorming different perspectives to reaching out to experts in a particular field, or even just breaking down a big problem into smaller, more manageable steps. It's about creating a framework for tackling challenges in a more organized and strategic way.
It takes the overwhelm out of the equation and allows you to approach the problem with more clarity and purpose. It's almost like you're giving your brain that same kind of external aid that a where-to-look list provides for finding your lost keys.
And I think that's a fantastic takeaway for our listeners today. Whether you're trying to remember where you put your phone, navigate the changing landscape of the entertainment industry, or tackle a complex problem in your life, remember the power of creating a roadmap for yourself.
And never underestimate the importance of staying curious, adaptable, and open to new ideas.
Couldn't agree more. Well, everyone, that brings us to the end of another deep dive. I hope you enjoyed exploring these winding paths of thought with us today. Remember, even the most seemingly mundane topics can lead to fascinating insights if you're willing to dig a little deeper. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those keys in a designated spot.